The central highlands of Vietnam offer no quarter. The dense canopy, unforgiving humidity, and deep mud make simple survival a challenge for any infantryman. This chart maps one specific mission. To reach his firing position, a single Marine crossed 1,500 meters of exposed terrain over 3 full days. Look at these flatline periods. When enemy guards approached, he stopped entirely, freezing in place. He carried virtually no food, using every available moment to weave the surrounding vegetation into his uniform to match the shifting brush. Moving forward meant dragging his body inches at a time. A sudden shift, a snapped twig, or irregular breath would give away his position. At the end of this slow crawl was a high-value target, a commanding North Vietnamese general. Fellow Marines watched him routinely lie perfectly motionless in the dirt for 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours at a stretch. Many Marines considered his biological control to be almost superhuman. A human brain is hardwired to flinch, to swat insects, and to react to exhaustion. Overriding those survival instincts requires a discipline that must be forged through years of necessity. Carlos Hathcock grew up far from military training grounds, in the deep poverty of rural Arkansas. He spent his childhood hunting in the woods behind his grandmother's house to provide for his family. In the grip of rural poverty, a missed shot meant an empty dinner table. He taught himself the mechanics of the rifle through pure repetition. He spent his childhood sitting quietly in the trees, observing wildlife patterns, and waiting hours for the one necessary shot. The woods served as his academy. Absolute poverty mandated extreme patience, creating a hunter perfectly adapted for prolonged isolation and high-stakes marksmanship long before he ever wore a uniform. At 17 years old, Hathcock brought those woodland instincts into the rigid structure of the United States Marine Corps. By 1965, he found himself competing in the Wimbledon Cup, the premier long-range marksmanship competition in America. He was a teenager with a self-taught background, going up against veteran shooters who enjoyed formal coaching, advanced gear, and deep financial backing. Hathcock won the cup cleanly, outshooting the entire field to establish himself as the nation's finest marksman before ever seeing combat. Hitting a distant target is a technical skill. The true danger lay in pairing that mechanical precision with the endless, calculated patience of a hungry kid from Arkansas. When Hathcock deployed to the Central Highlands, the hunting mechanics learned in the Arkansas woods mapped perfectly onto the environment. He began wearing a single, stark white feather tucked firmly into the band of his bush hat. A bright white object in a green and brown jungle violates every rule of camouflage. It offered zero tactical advantage. It was a deliberate, audacious taunt. He wanted the North Vietnamese to know exactly who was stalking their patrols. The enemy forces recognized the signature, identifying him in their communications as Long Trunk, the white feather. As his total reached 93 confirmed kills, the North Vietnamese Army Command placed a massive $30,000 bounty on his head. They dispatched specialized hunting teams across the jungle with orders to track him down. Hathcock had evolved from a soldier executing orders into a high-value psychological weapon operating directly inside the enemy command's mind. Which brings us back to the end of that 3-day crawl. After 72 hours of agonizing inch-by-inch movement, Hathcock finally reached his firing position. He set his sights, controlled his breathing, and eliminated the North Vietnamese general with a single shot. The mission wasn't over. He immediately began crawling backward, spending another 2 days inching his way to friendly lines without ever triggering an enemy alarm. His extreme discipline formed the basis for modern American sniper doctrine, establishing the strict fieldcraft standards still taught in the military today. But his most famous encounter occurred on a different patrol, when he noticed a sudden, brief flash of sunlight reflecting off a glass lens hidden deep within the distant tree line. It was the scope of an enemy sniper, aiming directly at his head. Hathcock pulled his trigger first, surviving a duel decided by a fraction of a millisecond.